were talking about before you came in, Dr. Robin, Tabitha, but not really about Tabitha. I think we were talking about me too. It's really hurtful to be all of the things that you are, and everyone says you're wonderful, but yet you're somehow not quite good enough. So you hired me to do something, or you brought me on to do this thing, you produced this whole, I'm excited, and then I'm not quite good enough. I have to change some things. It's painful because we're human beings, and even if you don't say it out your mouth, we're going to doubt. So I'm going to play the clip and then we'll talk about it. This is a clip from her Instagram or Twitter where she confronts some things without being direct. So we'll dissect it.
Hello there. Y'all all right? Real quick. I know I've said this so many times before, but for whatever reason, people just don't seem to believe me, okay? There is not a company, there is not a network, there is not a person, place, or thing that is going to change who I am. If you don't like Tab, as this Tab, if you don't like the Tab who gives God glory, if you don't like the vegan Tab, if you don't like the cooking Tab, the mama Tab, if you don't like my personality, if you don't like everything that makes Tab Tab, don't work with me because I'm not going to change. I'm not going to shift a little bit for your audience. I'm not going to talk a little bit different for your comfort. I'm not going to change. This person I am. This is who God created me to be. And if it ain't enough for you, then you're not for me.
Right, y'all. Y'all know the DVR Tuesdays, contemplated and stream it because the streaming numbers, they calculate those very much so. So we're going to do that. She followed up with a tweet where she said, honey, please don't confuse freedom with arrogance, because a lot of people are like, how dare she? She got a lot of nerve. Just be happy with the check, all of the stuff. She said, I used to be a code switcher and it did nothing for anyone. We should be accepted in any room because we are enough. I will never pave a road for others that requires them to give up their freedom. No, ma'am. Heart emoji. Dr. Robin, thoughts and prayers.
I mean, that is powerful and so courageous, and also essential, because what Tabitha knows, and those of us who have been in the industry, let's just call it, understand often that what is asked is that we become something other than who we really are, so that it can accommodate the comfort of other people. And so she's really speaking to, and you're right, now that I have heard the clip, what we were talking about in terms of God did, and in terms of hip hop. I mean, what does it mean? And rap, what does it mean for someone to recognize that the one thing that they will always fail at is trying to be someone else? And if you want to guarantee failure, sign up to be somebody other than yourself. And let me say this, parents are asking all the time that their kids be like them, not being like who the child was born and destined and divinely created to be, but be like your mama, be like your daddy, be like pop and mom. And so what Tabitha is really calling us into is an intimate, authentic conversation with who am I and who am I really? Who am I and who am I really? And there is a terror, particularly that Black people have, that if we don't sell out, that the sale will be over. And at times that has been true. And so I like what Tabitha is talking about, but what is her ultimate goal? Is the ultimate goal the check? Nothing wrong with the check. She deserves the check. She's entitled to the check, but she recognizes, the Bible says, what does it profit a person to gain the entire world and lose their soul? And so what she's saying is she's not for sale.
Mm.
And this isn't about Tabitha and all of the millions of dollars she's making. It's about you and me and everybody who's in our lives. Are we willing to pay the price, whatever that price is, to live the life that is ours to live, and to trust that if we do that, there is a payoff, whatever that means, at the end of that road that could never come from selling our souls.
Dr. Robin, can I ask you, I sort of asked Sophia the same question. Yeah. So Tabitha, let me be clear. It's not easy for Tabitha to be herself because she has weight on her and there's responsibility, but she's choosing to do so. But let's bring it to like a ground level. I'm going to give you like kind of a couple of examples. Okay. What would you say to the young Black woman, or anyone, we'll just say woman, period, who is currently working at a 9-to-5, trying to climb a ladder, and she's maybe just stepped into the door, she's doing a great job, this, that, and the other, but she kind of keeps herself quiet in board meetings, or she doesn't speak her voice because she's concerned about the fact that her voice is going to affect her bag, right? And in her case, she may have quite a bit to lose because she doesn't have that Target money. She doesn't have that New York Times bestseller book money. She has that trying to feed her kids, but she feels that thing inside of her that maybe doesn't completely feel right because she can't be herself. So you have that person, right? And then I'm going to give you another scenario that I'd love for you to speak to. Say you have this white pastor of a church, okay, who knows that the idea of Black Lives Matter is not propaganda. He knows in his heart what's real, what's truth, what's knowledgeable. He knows what Jesus has to say about it. But he also knows that saying certain things from the pulpit are going to affect the kind of money that he gets in his offering, which is something that's happening all over the world right now. So there's this realistic fight of being true to yourself. But when it comes to a granular level, it's a little bit harder to walk in. What would your words be for that? Absolutely. And
Tyler, I love these questions. There are questions that I have worked with people, people we know and people that we don't know. Let me start with the woman, whether it's an African-American woman or a woman who finally got in the door. Sure. She's no longer looking from the outside. She's actually in the room at the table. One of the essential things for her is not whether or not she raises hell, shall we say, and loses her seat. It's whether or not she is clear internally and with her tribe of people, what it is that is happening in her life, what is being asked of her, and how she can both navigate the moment and not lose the moment. So this is right. So this is not, everybody can't be Tabitha, and everyone is not meant to be Tabitha. Everyone is entitled to the truth of their story and a tribe that keeps them safe telling it. So that doesn't mean you go to work and tell your story, but it certainly means that at home, we are not wearing, as Paul Laurence Dunbar said, the mask that grins and lies. It's not that we don't wear the mask, it's where we wear it and where we take it off.
What's our responsibility? So Tabitha, I'm struggling, wrestling, because we don't wrestle with flesh and blood. I'm wrestling spiritually right now with Tabitha. Her sensation came through her relationship with her audience that she built and cultivated herself through her social media platforms. Food Network want to capitalize on the reach of her audience, which they don't have. Food Network, DIY, these home makeover channels are inherently very white. Right? They may have, Ron Sanchez or something. They're going to have different, people on, but the producers, the thought leaders, are very white. And they're comfortable in that. Somebody in the Nubian chat said, well, what about Paula Deen? Paula Deen reminds them of Dixie and slavery. They like that. That's a great image they want to project. Paula Deen was very much down home and Southern in a way that they liked. Tabitha is down home and Southern in a way that they don't like, because a Southern Black person is supposed to be submissive, jump off the curb, avert your eyes, give space to the white dominance, be mammy-like. You know what I'm saying? Which is why I reject all, I want to say something. I'm going to say something, which is why I'm watching who they ordain, or the pick-me Negroes that get the spaces are usually people that they're comfortable with the tropes that they represent. Absolutely. So there's the mammy, there's the sassy sapphire, there's because that's, Jezebel, all of these images of Black womanhood, which is why I'm rejecting right now in the chat, somebody calling me auntie. Don't call me your auntie. I'm a full 100% a woman. I ain't your aunt. I will whip your ass, but it may be in some different kind of way. But you need to understand that, you're not going to define me, is the point that I'm making, right? I define me. And when they pick you, it's because they're comfortable with what you project. Now, you may not know that. I know that a part of my success at the Daily News is because I fit a particular, loudmouth, sassy Black girl. And when I realized it, I flipped the script, because I'm like, we're going to do this differently. Yeah, okay. I see. Because it's like, I'm not going to rock the boat for them. I'm not messing with the power structure.
Right.
Until I did, right? And now you're in a different kind of battle. But I just had to get that off my chest, because our responsibility as consumers of this content and supporters of people like Tabitha means we have to double down. We got to which is why we got to record that thing and play it and go to whatever streaming platform it is and hit play. We got to show them where the power is. And it's not with them. It's with Tabitha. It's with Dr. Robin. It's with Tyler. It's with Karen. We're the power.
And she's representing that by flipping it on her side and going, what you say to me in silence about changing the network and the change, I'm going to go and take it public and go, hi, everybody.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what's happening here. And here we are talking about it on your show. And that show probably has more viewers now than it did in its first couple of weeks for bringing attention to that. But I wanted to go back, Doctor, because I wanted to make sure that you can speak to my white pastor guy over here.
I can. And I just want to say, I'll get to that, Tyler, in 1 second. Just
Karen, thank you, Dr.
what
Robin.
you just said about how we are positioned to be manipulated by a system that is going to exploit us. So for instance, because I am light-skinned and light eyes and light, whatever that means, and how I've been educated and lots of other trappings, it has often opened doors until it didn't. And what I mean by that is because I also am very clear about being a Black woman, that when that became clear to the powers that be, that I was clear about being Black, and that I came from a family that was very clear about being Black. Some might say in certain ways, well, I'll leave that out. But anyway, came from great clarity. That also closed doors. And I had to make a decision about whether or not I was going to let certain doors close until the right door opened. And Karen, a lot of that had to do with showing up here on this platform that you offered to me, and then the Dr. Robin show, and then the other things that are coming from that. So I think the other piece of this, Tyler, back to your point, is we have a lot of decisions to make as Black people who are assaulted for the very fact of being Black and owning it. And before I just get to your question, I did a pilot for one of the big networks, the major, the three, and I did a pilot for them. I go to do the pilot, and all of a sudden they say, we need you to wear yellow, and we need this. And I was like, well, yellow is a terrible color for me. I don't look at, and they said, well, like Mrs. Obama, and we need your arm. And so they went through this whole thing about how they were going to dress me like Mrs. Obama. And I said, okay, she's fabulous. I mean, she looks fabulous. She's beautiful. She's smart, but we don't look the same. Like, and what she can pull off and wear isn't good for me. And so what I'm saying is there is a blindness, almost that Black means that if we let you in, that we own you and we can make and remake you. And so I just want to speak to that reality that happens to all of us. And I had to find a safe place, Tyler and Karen, to go and tell my story in a way that it could be held and I could be held until the door opened for me to walk through it, not crawl through it on my knees. Because if you go through that way, they will eat you up and spit you out at some point. So to your white pastor, I don't know if you know, Tyler, that I'm ordained clergy too. So I don't know.
I do. Yep. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
yeah.
I know.
So that's why I love this question, because I think part of what we're seeing in the Christian world in general is that pastors were required to lie often to get their jobs. You know, like, in other words, they needed to be married even if they were gay, meaning married to someone of the opposite sex.
Sure.
They needed to have a family. They needed to, you know, God forbid you have a single pastor who dates. I mean, and maybe has sex and isn't married. So there were so many ways.
Been there.
Right, in which we made pastors lie to get their jobs, and then they make us lie to sit and listen to them. Yeah. And so what I really want to say about that white pastor is he or she, because it is both, they also need a safe place to be able to tell the dilemma they are in. The dilemma of conscience, the dilemma that Black Lives Matter is not well, it's radical, but it's radically true and necessary. And so that white pastor, the growth for him or her is to have some safe place where they can say, I'm between a rock and a multi-million-dollar hard place.
Wow.
And I don't know how to honor the Jesus that called me and the God of money that I now serve.
Dr. Robin. Okay. Okay.
But if they could say it, I didn't say tell their congregations. I didn't say lose everything they have. But if they could tell someone, you know, isn't this true for all of us when something is off and wrong? That if we begin to articulate the truth just in small bite-sized ways, it begins to take momentum and we can live into a new response if we can begin to put the truth out. It is when we keep it in secret that the secret and the lie is what is magnified and grows.
You said something that I wish I would have wrote down, because even when you said it, typically on the show, if someone says something that sticks out, I try to stop them right in the moment. But you said something about like not missing the moment. Like I wish I could remember, and somebody's going to go back and listen to it. But what I was going to say is it kind of relates to this pastoral moment too, because I find myself with that white pastor or white woman, whoever, whatever pastor, I find myself going, I love that you have your tribe. And oftentimes I end up being a part of many of those tribes where pastors can come to me and go, Tyler, I want you to know this is how I really feel in my heart, but I haven't gotten to the place yet where I can say it here. I'm ready for those moments now where we take these things public. Yeah. And I want to live in a Jesus world where people are talking about the Jesus that they first met. When we first started in the first hour, Karen has just finished reading my book, and I love it so much because she learned about me coming to know Jesus at a really young age. and how the Jesus that I fell in love with is the Jesus that I love now. That's the same Jesus. But that Jesus I fell in love with, after walking through a lot of steps in my life, got twisted and turned and pulled in all these different directions. And before I knew it, I didn't recognize that thing that I fell in love with in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
But when you come back to that spot, you feel this thing. I feel like I'm getting emotional, so forgive me for it. You feel
don't
like
apologize for that. That's the freedom coming.
Like you can't help but to let that truth come out of you. You can't help but to sit in a congregation and go, Pastor, I need you to have that boldness of the Jesus we know, bro. I need you to have that.
Yeah.
And so all of that to say that that's great in theory, but coming back to, like you said, in practice is a different thing. So
but I do
the
think
moment can be lost.
Yeah, but I do think for what you're saying, that being able to say to that pastor, I want to tell you what it feels like for me, for you to be in the closet about this. I want you to know what your closeted living, not about all the other stuff that, sex and homosexuality.
Sure.
I want to talk about race, Pastor, and I want to talk about what your closeted living is costing me.
866-801-8255. Dr. Robin Smith is here. This weekend, I think you're talking with Brian Stevenson. Are you talking with Brian Stevenson?
No, not yet. No, that's going to happen on. That's going to happen on your when I have the privilege of.
Okay, all right. I spoke out of turn because I'm like, shoot.
I mean,
right.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Brian and Howard. That's going to happen on your platform.
All right. In the meantime, I was talking with Tyler because as I was walking and listening, because I'm now getting my steps in and multitasking, getting it all in. And audiobooks are beautiful for not having to sit in one place and absorb things. I was thinking that many of us use Jesus as a crutch, use God as a crutch, Allah as a crutch to not live our full lives. We have these checklists of things that are required of us based on what we believe these figures are, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, whatever. And it gives us an out to actually live because we got Jesus as a crutch. And I wonder, how do people understand or come to that realization in their own lives? Because there's some people that are so rigidly Christian or so rigidly Muslim or so rigidly Buddhist, or not Buddhist as much, but follow Hinduism because Buddhism is that fluidity that anyway, that they don't explore life. They're not living. So they never make mistakes because they're following the letter of the law, and then they're wagging their finger at everybody else that's not, because they're low-key mad that people are doing things that they can't do. So you mad, you big mad. Just live. It'll be all right. How do we get people to break away from the crutch of Jesus?
Yeah. And by the way, there are very rigid Buddhists who will own.
Are there?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I think of Buddhism as, this Tai Chi, yin yang.
No. It is meant to be all about the moment. But I have Buddhist friends who talk about the same kind of religious rigidity that is in the Christian faith and in the Muslim faith, that there are Buddhists who are as constipated as the rest of people of faith. So, but I will, as you ask that question, what comes to mind for me is the way in which Jesus, in this example, becomes an addiction. And addictions are places where people hide and self-medicate from pain. And so if we were to dismantle the way in which people use Jesus as a crutch, as a hiding place, I didn't say as a refuge and not as your strength, but as a hiding place. And there's a difference between being your refuge and your strength and hiding. if we are to unpack what it means to actually know Jesus, the only way to know Jesus is to know Jesus in truth. I mean, it says that the Spirit of truth will come. And if we ask ourselves, like, the quote, and I've said on here before, we're only as sick as our secrets.
Mm.
So if we do a temperature check right now and we ask ourselves, how many secrets am I keeping? How many secrets am I living? We begin to understand that the more secrets we have, the less room there is for Jesus to abide in us, through us, with us. People were like, why isn't God with me? And I'm like, well, because God needs space to abide. And so if what is taking up space in my life are my fears and my lies and my hiding, then God can be 100% in the little bit of space that I give God. So if we want more abundance and more connection, then we have to make room for truth.
Dr. Robin,
way around that. Yes.
Please forgive me for interrupting you for a second, but I just think it's important that the people that are listening to this right now do not just take this as a thought, but take it as something tangible, because I guarantee there is somebody who is listening to right now that needs to hear what you're saying. They're saying that these secrets that are held, these the shame that is held, that you're gripping onto, is actually keeping you from allowing that truth of who God is actually into who you are. And when those secrets begin to get released, and God forbid they're not released in some shameful, horrible way, but I'm talking about on you on a personal level, going, let me deal with the truth of what's going on in my heart. Let me walk in that. What you're saying is beautiful and great and full of grace. And I just wanted to make sure that people didn't miss it.
Well, no, thank you, for that. And to me, when we think of the old school camp meetings, where, old school revivals, I feel, and I really want to do this, after COVID, whatever that means, to really create a space, not where Billy Graham was condemning people, and there are all kinds of racial and racist ways that were embedded in many Christian leaders.
Sure.
But really to invite people to come down and not only meet God, but meet themselves for the first time in a long time. And what an intoxicating moment to be invited to come and meet yourself. I mean, that there is nothing more powerful than that union. There really is. And there is nothing more transformative than to offer God your whole heart. That, I mean, whole, meaning that's WHOLE with the holes, the HOLES. We got a lot of holes in our hearts. But if we can bring all of those holes to that whole experience, it's a holy, an HOLY journey.
Look at you with the double and triple entendres.
I'm trying. That's what I'm living. That's what I'm living.